After I pivoted my career and I got into content writing, I've been following her work. And who do we have here for you? It's Vaidehi Murthy. No, that's the best I could manage. And she's here to give you more laughs and more insights into punning and witty writing. It's a Punderful world. Vaidehi Murthy with Sriram Sullia.
Punning and the art of punning is what we'll be exploring with Vaidehi Murthy. And Vaidehi Murthy, to give you a little perspective, is someone who dons multi hats. And just now I was telling her that, geez, you really go for it when you really want to do something. Because I think as part of your journey, your career, right from the software industry to just taking off to the hills, teaching, be it your stint with NGOs, going to Vietnam, dabbling with content, and that's now become full-time as well. Give us a perspective. Would you want to take us through your journey and how punning came along the way as well?
Thank you, Sriram. First of all, I would like to thank BLF for having me because this is such a full circle moment for me. I've been the wide-eyed face in the audience trying to absorb and get inspired by luminaries on stage, William Dalrymple, Ruskin Bond, and all of them. So to be here on this stage, at this stage in my life is really gratifying. So thank you, and doubly thrilling to be doing it with Sriram because I've been listening to him for years, and I used to listen to your breakfast show on the way to work.
Now you're making me feel like I'm really old.
But let me tell you, yours is the only jam that helped me bear the traffic jam. So thank you for that. Sorry. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Should we call this Mike Tyson? Because it's going to be delivering some punchlines. So, yeah, about my journey, I am an engineer from South Bangalore. Nailed that stereotype. So, I started and I just graduated and decided to do it. By it, I mean IT. I was a software engineer for about 5 years. A part of it I spent abroad. And then I felt like I was a good student and I was, checking all the boxes. I felt like my life was very vanilla. So I decided that I needed to add more dimension to my life. And so one day I quit and just went off to the mountains and decided to become a volunteer at this eco school called SecMol. Some of you might have heard about Sonam Wangchuk. He runs this school. And that stint was, it changed my outlook towards life completely. In a sense that I feel like that stint somewhere down the line made me realize that it's not enough to be a content writer, you need to be a content writer. So it helped me realize the value of little joys and things like that. And once I did that, I was caught by the bug. I had this travel kida in me. I went to different places, Vietnam. I did a stint of volunteering there with some tribals who had to be rehabilitated. That gave me a new perspective. So this whole idea of doing different things is what I think gave me the reason to be inventive in life. And just to look at things from a new perspective and just not see it for the mundane, the banal. So that was why I did different things career-wise. As far as punning goes, my first exposure to puns was actually this song that my grandfather used to sing to me as a little girl. It's a Kannada folk song. I apologize to the non-Kannada speaking people. The translating it would just kill the pun, so I'm going to refrain from doing it. Just bear with me for a minute. The song is, the lyrics of the song go, Ragi Tandira, Bhikshege Ragi Tandira, Yogya Ragi, Bhogya Ragi, Bhagyavantaragi Neevu, Ragi Tandira. So this was a revelation for me. I was like, what kind of sorcery is this? One phrase, two meanings. So that's where my fascination for puns started. And And then I grew up with a bunch of really hilarious cousins, so we used to riff off each other and pun around a lot. And of course, in college, you grew up in the 90s in college, and every class used to have a PJ King or a PJ Queen, and I used to be that person in college. And after that, I just continued doing it until one day Facebook entered my life. Uh, where I was introduced to this gateway drug called Facebook likes. Uh, I've had
Dopamine. Yeah.
I've had my own journey with it, but I feel like I've reached some kind of a healthy situation with that now. But Facebook was was really the first time that we used to do Orkut before, but in Orkut you had to scrap somebody else. Like you had to address it to another person. It was still a one-to-one thing. Whereas Facebook status was the first time it was a one-to-many thing. Like you could put up your status and many people would look at it. So that was the first time I started putting my puns on a public platform. Subsequently, Twitter came, and the retweet feature was helped the puns to be shared exponentially, and that really helped spread the word. And I started, connecting with fellow punsters, and that's kind of nice because it's a very interactive thing on Twitter. People come, comment, and yeah, it's been a fun journey, yeah.
Incredible. And truly, I think Twitter as a platform is almost hand in glove with what you do with puns and the limited characters as well. We'll talk about social media a little more in detail. How many of you here know of Orkut? Just to get a sense of the audience that we are talking to here.
The OGs.
Yes. Lovely. So that's how you started punning, being the PJ Queen in school, and then just going all out in terms of expressing yourself using social media to a large extent as well. There is the art of punning. Did you at any point of time go on to explore what it is that you're putting together, and is there a method to this madness? And what is it even called? Is there technicality, and adding a bit of technicality to the chaos that you were coming out with? How did that turn out to be, and what is the art of punning really?
So as I said, I've been fascinated with this since childhood. So I have done a little bit of digging into what goes into making a pun. And I'm going to get a little bit technical in the next 5 minutes because I want to give everyone a sneak peek into the world of punning the way I know it, because I find it extremely fascinating. So a punster that I follow, John Pollock, he has written a book called The Pun Also Rises, where he says that a pun is made of 3 elements. One is it's a view from an abstraction POV, as you need to zoom out and look at something from a level of abstraction. Second is it's a deliberate subversion of rules. That is, you need to knowingly bend some grammatical rules. And the third one is the appreciation for surprise. Like so whenever something unexpected happens, right, it becomes funny. You take the Prime Minister and put him in a Jay-Z concert, it becomes funny, right? So that element of unexpectedness is often what makes something funny. And if I have to unpack the anatomy of a pun a little bit and talk about it as a linguistic device, I'll talk about the categorizations of puns that exist. There are many. I'll talk about a few. So firstly, I would like to talk about puns which are homophones. When I say homophones, I mean words that sound similar to each other. So if I could quote an example like, the enthusiasm at the circus was intense. It could be intense or intense. It's how you hear it. So that is a homophonic pun. Then there are homographic puns, where the sentence doesn't change, the spelling doesn't change, it's how you perceive it. It's more of a cognitive thing. For example, if I say that the prison wall was not built to scale. So there, the sentence doesn't change. It's how your brain perceives it, whether it's scaling as climbing or scaling as a proportion of size. So that is a homographic pun. Then there is a whole other categorization of puns, which is, one is a paradigmatic pun, where you need a reference. You need to be primed with a prior context before you get the pun. Recently I tweeted who called it this and not that is kind of my go-to format. So recently I tweeted who called it Twitter timeline and not bird feed. So for you to get that pun, you need to first know there is an app called Twitter. You need to know that it has a logo, which is a bird. You need to know that the timeline might also sometimes be called a feed. So who called it a Twitter timeline and not a bird feed? You get that pun only if you have the context of all those things. So that is a paradigmatic pun. And then there are these other puns called syntactic puns, which are like, you give all the information required to understand the pun in the pun. You just need to know English and you'll get the pun. I'll give you an example for that as well. If I say, it was a beautiful wedding, the bride was in tears, the cake was in tears too. So that is a syntagmatic pun, and so those are the kinds of puns, and these are just the serious categorizations of puns, right? And then there is a whole other set of puns which are bilingual puns. And to me, for me being an Indian, bilingual puns is like Disneyland, because India has so many languages, so many contexts, and so many possibilities. So bilingual puns are one of my favorite. If I had to quote like a simple bilingual pun that I had done, who called it a lotus and not a swimming pool? So that is a bilingual pun that cuts across languages. And I've also actually given a try to a trilingual pun. I'll need your participation for this. I want you to ask me a question.
Okay.
Ask me, can you tell me what comes after 8?
Okay.
Ask me that.
So, Vaidehi, what comes after 8?
Can you tell me what comes after?
Can you tell me what comes after 8?
My answer in English is no. My answer in Hindi is no. My answer in German is 9. Are you seeing the layers? So that's a trilingual pun that I tried. Right. Before I go on to the next set, I just want to take like a moment and say that, you know, sometimes it's unfortunate when people dismiss puns as something silly or frivolous or simplistic. But there are so many layers to it, which and so many nuances, which makes it a really rich part of language. And I feel like it's something that ought to be cherished. Coming back to the categories, sorry, I'll just take some more time on that.
Please.
I can go on about this forever. Next, I'll talk about something called spoonerism. This is something that's named after the infamous Reverend Archibald Spooner. He was known for his fumbles and tumbles and grumbles. So a spoonerism is where when the first letter of two words are transposed for the phrase to make another meaning. I'll give you I'm going to give an example for everything, so if you're a little bit lost when I'm explaining something, wait for the example. So this, an example of spoonerism is when, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than have a frontal lobotomy. So you transpose the first two letters for it to form another meaning. Frontal lobotomy is, by the way, when your frontal lobe of the brain is cut out and removed. If that's too gory for you, let's move on to something darker. The next one. The next one is about a blind man. It's called a Wellerism, named after Sam Wellers. A Wellerism is where the word as is cleverly used so that the phrase following it gets a new meaning. Example time. The example is, I see, said the blind man, as he picked up the hammer and saw. Now, did he pick up the hammer and a saw, or did he pick up the hammer and see? So that's the ambiguity there. So those are Wellerisms. And of course, there are so many more. There's the ubiquitous knock-knock jokes, which has recently gained popularity in pop culture because of Sara Ali Khan. Knock-knock jokes in itself has 3-4 varieties, depending on who the speaker is. And then, of course, there are portmanteaus, which are combination of two words which form a new word, like breakfast plus lunch becomes brunch, and Saif plus Kareena becomes Saifina, and I think it's Rani Mukherjee and Aditya Chopra who named their kid Adira. A lot of parents choose to do a portmanteau of their names to name their kids. So yeah, it's a fascinating world. I've been enchanted with it forever, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
I bet. I mean, if words could kill, right? And I feel it's also a way to make your communication all the more effective.
Absolutely.
One needs to be extremely careful when having a conversation with Vaidehi, for sure.
Not at all.
Make sure you pick her brains as well. Also, when you did speak about bilingual puns, we'd want to try something with the audience who are all here. And I think it'll require a little bit of your participation. We'll get to that in a few moments.
Oh, no.
At one point of time, it would have seemed like, where will all these puns end up? Because of the lack of technology there was at one point of time, maybe a comic strip. However, thanks to technology, Twitter, and putting up your thoughts on Twitter must have been like a kid in a candy store, right? So talk to me about the kind of responses and how social media dependent, at the same time it's taking a course of its own. Where do you see this going?
So my favorite part of the day is to check the comments on my puns, because puns have a way of encouraging other people to pun as well. They pun on related words and related...
The comment section is an animal of its own,
yes,
right?
Yes. Fortunately, I don't get the negative cesspool that Twitter is otherwise. I try to be an island of light humor in the otherwise whirlpool of negativity. But I really enjoy the comments that people make on my puns, and Twitter as a medium is so conducive for that. People can comment, they can share their own comment, they can share my tweet and all of those things. But Twitter is my favorite TV channel. Like, it's entertainment 24/7, and it's just so random. I love it. Like, one day in 2017, I got a DM from Kamal R. Khan. Just lol, no context, just lol, okay? And a screenshot of that is one of my most prized possessions to date. And then another day I wake up to find the office of the defense minister following me, which was very thrilling but also slightly disconcerting. I was like, yay, the office of the defense minister is following me, but also I sincerely hope the office of the defense minister has more pressing things to attend to than a pun account. So yeah, Twitter is just surprising, astounding, astonishing every single day, and its eccentricities are mirrored in the man at the helm right now, and I'm just here with my popcorn to see how the show ends.
So, where do you, I mean, is there a book that you wish to write at some point of time? How do you see this progressing as this goes along?
It is definitely on my bucket list to be able to write a book on something that I'm passionate about, and I would love to reach that level someday, but I feel there is a lot of digging to do, a lot of studying to do, and a lot of credibility to gain before I take that step. So as of now, I'm happy with my 280 characters.
Well, you're here at the Bangalore Literature Festival, so I guess baby steps, and
Yes.
that too shall happen soon enough. I definitely want you to read out a few of your works. We'll get to that, but right now, do we want to try something with our audience who are here? Would you, should we try some live punning on stage?
So I've never done this before. I can't promise. Maybe if it's your lucky day, let's try it out. Otherwise, we'll just, move on to
I
the
think
next
the
thing.
audience is supportive enough. Yes? What say? Yeah?
So just anyone can give me your name and I'll...
Okay, we've got Aditya.
That's my
We've
friend.
got Aditya so far.
A name pun from me, you can add it to your bucket list.
Let's try a couple more names if you may. Yeah, anyone feels they have a complicated name?
No Chidambaram and all that, please.
Yes, please. Saloni. We have Saloni.
I shall only make a pun if you give me some more time.
Let's go with one more. One more? Can we have one more? Yes, please.
Shando. Ashando.
Ashando. You're Bengali? No?
I think we let this one pass. But I'll get back to you though. Ashando,
you.
I'll get back to you though. I shando it. Arjun. My favorite months are June and July.
Incredible. I see how this can go on. Yes, sir. Please.
Prem. The primary reason why I'm doing this is because I love doing it.
It truly opens up multiple doors. And you're right when you say India is a land where every 50 kilometers the language changes, the tradition, the cultures.
Yes.
The sky's the limit, I guess. And
The possibilities are endless.
and you have your work cut out for you. Vaidehi, let's go over some bit of work that you wish to showcase to the audience here.
These are some of my... Sorry, just give me a moment. My phone is hanging. Okay, these are some of my puns which I have tweeted out. So if you've already seen it on Twitter, bear with me. Like I said, who called it this and not that is my go-to format. But contrary to popular belief, I didn't discover it, I didn't invent it. I just picked it up from the internet, which, as we all know, is a gift that keeps on giving. Who called it speed reading and not paragliding? Who called it depletion of the ozone layer and not Tata Sky? Who called it backspace and not character assassination? Who called it the Winter Olympics and not Coldplay? Who called it a train ticket and not a birthright? Who called them horses and not naysayers? Who called them gardeners and not branch managers? So I have some more. Do we have the time?
I think we'll do 3 more.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I have another format called It's Socially Acceptable. It's socially acceptable for an MRI technicians to have body image issues. It's socially acceptable to pick clocks and trespass at a wig factory. It's socially acceptable for doctors to be ill-informed. Yeah, should we stop? I have some more. I mean,
If we have time, I'd like to throw it open. If anyone has a question, if you wish to ask any questions to Vaidehi, I'd like to keep the floor open. Yes, please.
I'm also South Bangalore techie, but okay. So my question is, I have 2 questions. So one is like, sometimes you write a pun, and somebody else, some other page with many more times followers than you picks up, and they paste it there. Basically plagiarism. How do you deal with that? And secondly, I also sometimes try punning on, my Twitter and Facebook. So, like, you think of a pun, you think, oh, this is the one, and you post it and it doesn't land. People are like, okay. But, and some other day you come with a pun which is, you are like, okay, and you post it and people are like, oh, this is, so funny. Like, how do you react to that,
Given the exposure that we all have is common, there is sometimes an overlap of two people thinking of the same thing. So if you're amicable about it with the creator of that, then it's fine. But in instances of plagiarism like the ones you mentioned, I mean, you can't keep tabs on the internet, which is endless. So I just put my stuff out, and honestly, I'll segue into the second part of your question. Using that topic, because I don't do social media for others, I do it for me. I put up puns that I am proud of, and I don't really, I'm not concerned about what happens to the pun after it goes out. For me, that eureka moment, that epiphanic moment when I think of the pun, that itself is the reward. So I don't really give too much thought to this. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, one last question.
Hello.
Yeah.
Regards the 280 character limit that you were talking about. So my puns, they tend to get a little, you could say, situational. I try to create a situation. I'll give you an example, the way you did. So the other day I was telling someone about how I dipped a newspaper in beer, and I was reciting the Akbar Birbal story. So
Nice one.
things like that. So, but some of them, they tend to get a little too long, and people, they tend to lose interest. So how do you refine your puns, or how do you make sure that it lands, or just cut down on the words?
Kind of puns you're talking about, they're called shaggy dog stories. You should look it up, where it's a long winding story and then that ends in a pun. So they have their own place. There's a lot of debate between long form and short form writing, especially in today's day of social media and character limits. I find I like to draw a parallel between a big fat juicy grape and a raisin, where all that flavor of that grape is concentrated in that raisin. The grape is like the long form writing, and we know how, we all know about that feeling of longing we have on the last page of the last paragraph of a book we have loved and lived. We just don't want it to end. We want it to last longer. Even though it's the last page, we want it to last longer. So I get that. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that time is a limited resource, and if people are able to extract that little pleasure in a little time from a little sentence, from a little app which has a little bird on it, then there's little to complain about. So yeah, long form has its own place, short form has its own place, but both are grape in their own way.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vaidehi Murthy, give her a big round of applause.
Thank
You
you.
can feel free to interact with her. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Sriram, for
This has
moderating
been fun.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.